It is time to call to order the 5,529th meeting of the Rotary Club of Chicago. And we are back in business, right? Very good, very good. Well, welcome everybody, and welcome everybody on Zoom. Thank you for joining us. A few caveats before we get started. First of all, this is our first in-person meeting since early March. It is our first blended meeting, both in-person and Zoom. It is also outdoors, and it is not on our home turf. So we don't have a ton of control over a lot of the sound and AV and those types of things as much as we normally would. So we are going to do our best to make sure that you're able to see what is going on with the meeting. It might be a little bit less participatory for folks in Zoom than it might normally be in a full Zoom meeting for today. But when we do return to the Union League Club and we have blended meetings with Zoom, I guarantee you that there will be that opportunity to participate a little bit more. As we go through the meeting today, because the folks in the room are not going to be able to hear people on Zoom, if there are questions for our speaker today, please type them into the chat box, and we will do our best to read them off into the room and get an answer for you. The other thing I'd like to point out is we're right next to the Rock Island tracks, which is the third busiest line in the metro system. We also have the orange line and the red line here within shouting distance. So there's a bit of background noise. So I'm hoping that everybody can hear well enough. So with that, I want to move us to the thought of the day. And to do the thought of the day, I'd like you to welcome one of our newest members, but a veteran Rotarian, Chuck Grebe. Chuck, come on up.
Oh, wow. Hello, everybody. I'm Chuck Grebe. Grebe. Chuck Grebe, no problem. It's all good. Thank you very much. And the thought for the day, well, let's see here now. I think that maybe because all of us Rotarians have a good knowledge of the four-way test, so I think the first thought for, let's say the day is 5:30 p.m., but so let's say thought for the week or for tomorrow day would be, the question is it the truth? So the four-way test is that we say and think and do, is it the truth? And what is the truth? So we have to think about what is the truth. And so the truth is different for different people, but the truth, as many philosophers have said over the millennium, is based upon the truth today. So the truth today could be different than the truth tomorrow, but the truth always remains the same regardless of what we may think it is at this moment. Examples would be like in the splitting of the atom. Well, the truth before was that the atom couldn't be split, and then the atom was split. So therefore, we have to think about what is the truth and then live by that in our lives as best as we can, given the current state of the world. The second is, everyone, what is the second? Is it beneficial to all concerned? Isn't that the second? I'm sorry, is it fair to all concerned? Sorry, that's the fourth. Is it fair to all concerned? So what is fair? What is fairness? So fairness is equity. And so equity, I think, is defined as an investment in something that everybody can benefit from. So is it fair to all concerned? So it's a thought that we need to think about in our daily lives. How do we bring equity? How do we bring fairness? How do we bring wholeness to our lives and for others as well? So it's a very important principle. So truth, fairness. And then the third is, does it build goodwill and better friendships? So you think about the word goodwill. What is goodwill? Well, what is good? Okay, philosophers throughout the millennium have also attempted to define what is good, but that's individual to each person. But we generally know what good is. We generally know how it feels. So what is goodwill? Goodwill is charity, being charitable to others, being helpful to others, being giving to others, being loving to others. So that's an important principle to kind of guide our lives through as well. So what a wonderful thinking. The four-way test starts to bring us into some thinking as we start our day into doing good things and helping others in a charitable way. And then friendships. Naturally, friendships are born out of common interests, doing good for others, working together, as Rotary has done for over 100 years. And then also, I think the last is it beneficial to all concerned? Will it be beneficial to all concerned? I think is the exact phraseology to it. And beneficial to all concerned, beneficial to all concerned, not just individual groups, but to all. And the Rotary Club has exemplified that through its history in overcoming many obstacles in the world. In other words, polio, we took on that scourge and I think did a phenomenal job in bringing together the resources. What Rotary does internationally, what Chicago Rotary has done, it's an amazing amount of work at the local level and then bringing it out to the international level. It's just been amazing. So I'd like to end with the thought of the day being popular philosopher Mortimer Adler, who was a modern day philosopher at the University of Chicago, said one time, he observed, what amazing things that we've done as mankind. You know, cellular phones, internet, healing medicines throughout the world. I mean, amazing things. So I'd end with this. And he said, you know, to be realistic, attempt the impossible. And that's the truth. Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a great day.
Thank you, Chuck. That's perfect. That's perfect. That's great. Thank you very much. And so it's, again, so it's Groby.
Roby.
Rhymes with Roby.
Yeah,
like Roby House.
What did the big B say to the little?
That's real estate in the South Side.
I don't think that's what he said.
What did the big B say to the little B?
Groby?
Roby.
I'll remember that. I'll remember that. That's good. Thank you. Thank you. For our guests here in the room, there are box dinners over here. Because of COVID-19, we cannot do buffet style, so do feel free to grab a dinner at any point during the evening while we're talking. Also, feel free at any point to grab a drink. And for those of you at home, you can do the same. So, as I said, as we go through today, feel free for the folks in Zoom to put comments into the chat box. Also, for those here in the room, we do have face masks available. We do have Rotary One custom face masks made by our very own new member, Natalie Loma. They are $20 a piece, and the proceeds will go for COVID relief service projects throughout the year. And obviously, this helps make our PR and marketing committee happy because we're able to better spread the name of the Rotary Club of Chicago. So a couple of general announcements first before we get to the main program for today. First of all, I wanted to share with you a thank you note that our very own favorite Scotsman, Gus Noble, wrote. And he says, a note to say how very, very much the thoughtfulness, generosity, and support of the Rotary Club of Chicago means to this Scotsman and the incredible people who live and work at Caledonia Senior Living and Memory Care. In this global war we all fight against COVID-19, senior living communities are the front lines. For supplying the heroes who are fighting on these front lines with face masks, I thank you and my good friends at Rotary One from the bottom of my heart. Thank you. Please stay safe and be well. And this is in regard to our partnership with the Taiwanese government, the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in Chicago, to send a shipment of face masks to the senior living center that Gus Noble runs. Another announcement, last year, for the first time, the Rotary Foundation offered a Rotaract Giving Certificate to recognize Rotaract clubs that contribute substantially to the foundation. In order for a club to achieve this distinction, at least 5 of its members needed to donate a total of $50. Through this initiative, 144 clubs earned their certificates this year. So by the way, there are 11,000 Rotaract clubs in the world, and just 144 earned this distinction. And our own Rotaract Club of Chicago was one of them. So let's give them a round of applause. Now, For those of you who religiously read the Gyrator, and I know that's all of you, of course, you've seen that a new Rotary One website is in the works and will be revealed real soon. So the new website consists of both a new front end and a new back end. And I understand that change is, of course, always hard, but Cam will be here to support any technical challenges that arise as the website is released. In the end, I guarantee it will be much better in look and feel, but more importantly, the back end for data storage and data mining will be better in ways that you cannot even possibly imagine, and significantly reduce staff time spent by CAM to deal with a bunch of issues that they will then be able to move to other more productive uses for the club. So just be aware that in the weeks ahead, we will be rolling out this website. Okay, so without further ado, I want to talk to you a little bit about Nancy Kalchbrenner. There we go, independent tour guide for the city of Chicago. Nancy and her husband have returned to the city where they first met after raising a family in Rockford, Illinois. Excited to be back in Chicago on a regular basis, Nancy began volunteering for the city as a Chicago greeter over 10 years ago. That led to becoming an independent tour guide for Chicago on the International Tours by Locals site over 7 years ago. She loves to show off the city and learn more herself in providing customized private tours. Please welcome independent tour guide and Rotary One member, Nancy Kalchbrenner. Nancy.
Yes, I am going to take off my mask, but my mask is valuable to the first part of my talk. So good evening, and thank you, Eric. And we're enjoying a gorgeous night in Chicago. So we are here in Chinatown, but I wanted to kind of talk about Chicago in a broader context and then kind of narrow it down and chat a little bit about this area. And yes, we have trains going by, but that's the usual tour guide situation. Here they come. So we just get used to talking over that. And really, if there's any questions, you know, we'll try to have a little give and take here too. But there we go, the L, always in the background in Chicago. So when I talk about Chicago, I like to talk about the Chicago flag. And many of you might have seen it, but my face mask is the Chicago flag. Right there, very simple. So you might have, hopefully you've seen it around and you've said, okay, that's a pretty flag. But I use it in my tours because it really tells the story of the city of Chicago. So there's two blue stripes because we are really very blessed with two bodies of water that are critical to how we began, how we are now, and one of them in particular to this area where we stand today. So the first one represents Lake Michigan. The other one represents the Chicago River. And to tell the truth, that's how tour guides, we kind of simplify it. But the truth is that first blue stripe represents Lake Michigan and the north branch of the Chicago River. And then the other blue stripes represents the south branch of the Chicago River. So we stand here today along the south branch of the river. So that's really an important part of our history and the history of this area. So it's very convenient that we have two blue stripes because it divides our flag into three white stripes. Does anybody have any thoughts about what that might represent, the white stripes? If the blue is water, the white is land. So it represents that when you live in Chicago, nobody really lives on the east side. We all live on the north side, the west side, or the south side. East side is pretty much all Lake Michigan. So that's what that represents. We have 4 red stars. The first red star is very pivotal, and I know if you've visited Chicago, you have passed over the site that first star represents. It represents how Chicago began as Fort Dearborn. And if you've ever walked across that bridge at Michigan Avenue, the DuSable Bridge, you might not have looked down because it's too crowded, but there are pavement markers on that south end of the bridge that indicate that was Fort Dearborn. That's how Chicago began, as a trading post and a transportation hub. So we're still, and even this area today, very much a part of the transportation issues and transportation and trains and the waterways in Chicago. So that's how we began. And then the United States was settling from the east to the west. And so there was a population here already that kind of felt they'd already settled it. So there was a fort, and there were definitely issues with the Native Americans and people who were coming here to settle it. So, you know, difficult beginning, but the Fort Dearborn is how Chicago began. That second star, I know everyone's familiar with this, is the Chicago Fire. Does anybody know what year that was? 1871, very good. Actually started a little bit north of here. And so this area was spared because it went pretty much to the north and west and east and destroyed most of the city. So you think, well, that's kind of a bad thing to happen to the city. But for Chicago, total rebirth. We took the debris from the fire, we threw it out along what was pretty much our marshy waterfront, made new extra land there, and we had people that started coming to Chicago and saying, "Oh, you know, they're really building something here." And during that era is when the citizens of Chinatown had begun to come, Chinese population had begun to come to Chicago. They came to Chicago just before the fire. Many of the Chinese had come to the United States, and they came mostly out west for the gold rush, for the building of the railroad, right, Eric? And then something happened. They finished the railroad. What year was the Golden Spike, Eric?
I want to say it was 1870.
1869. Eric said 1870 was right there. We had to quiz the railroad guy about, you know. So when the Transcontinental got finished, they drove that Golden Spike in 1869. Chinese population began to seek work and develop and looking elsewhere in the United States. So that's when a lot of the population. They actually settled in the Loop. So their community was impacted by the fire because they were right in downtown Chicago and had businesses down there, very thriving area. And then, so that third star represented that era of everyone's coming to Chicago, everyone's finding new opportunities. All these architects came here and they were learning to build with steel. It's like, stop building everything out of wood because turns out fire. So even the sidewalks back then were built out of wood. So that was an era, just a time in Chicago, everyone is coming here, everyone's discovering, all sorts of new things happen. So we bid for and we received the World's Fair of 1893. So if anybody's read the book, The Devil in the White City, I highly recommend it. Tells that story about that World's Fair 1893. And that was on the south, very much south of Chicago in Hyde Park, which had been not part of the city, more like a resort area, but became part of the city. University of Chicago is there now. So very well known that what was happening during that World's Fair time. So that was 1893. That's the third star in our flag. And during that time, we also continued to have a lot of immigrant populations coming here. We were growing so fast. We were, all sorts of neighborhoods were being established in Chicago, and the Chinese population, they came here even more because after the railroad were finished and there were not jobs, it became an issue about the immigrants from China. And there was actually a federal act, the Chinese Exclusion Act, that forbid Chinese to come here to work. So a lot of it sounds familiar. And so they were seeking jobs in different areas, and some of that, the pushback they were feeling, exclusion, definitely they were feeling, came out of that. And also when you read about the World's Fair, you'll read about the fact that it treated other cultures not as we're all part of different cultures and isn't that interesting, but it treated cultures as something to just look at, and it was very different. Some of the actual exhibits at the World's Fair had people of different cultures as if they were in a zoo. It was a very difficult time. There were a lot of issues that came out of that, and the Chinese community was definitely impacted by that. They actually had a handout at the World's Fair that was race types of the World's Fair. So we hear a lot about the architecture and the design and the development and all the new Ferris wheel, and we invented the zipper and Cracker Jacks, but there were other issues that were impacting our community and definitely impacted the community that surrounds us here. So the fourth star is in 1933, we had another World's Fair. It was housed out along what is now the museum campus. So it was a celebration of 100-year of century of progress. So it was a celebration of 100 years of Chicago. So that's the flag, really tells our story. There is a handout, and also some of you on Zoom might have gotten that because I wanted to share both the flag if somebody's not familiar with that. But also I included a pretty decent picture of the neighborhoods of Chicago, because I think that's important that we talk about where we are. We thought we were going to be looking out at the river and beautiful Pingtom Park. We're not, but so see you people you're on Zoom. You're getting kind of the same view we have right now. But this area has had a lot of development. And so I wanted to show everyone, just to give you an idea of all the different neighborhoods in Chicago. And I'm often asked about, especially in tourists, people say, oh, this is such a big city. How do you feel living in the big city? But I think most people that live here, we are very connected to our neighborhood. And that's what we identify. Now, the funny thing that you might notice about if anybody wants to count, I'll wait, just count all those neighborhoods. No. Anyway, Chicago often says we have 77 neighborhoods. If you look at that map, there's about 80 plus on there. And really when we start to identify, we look at the map, there's not even Bronzeville isn't on there. I mean, a lot of neighborhoods that we identify and aren't on there. So it's funny, the official view of the neighborhoods. But I just like to point that out. And as Eric pointed out, I started out being a volunteer for the city of Chicago. The tourism the umbrella organization for tourism culture in Chicago is To Chicago. And I volunteered as a Chicago greeter. So I like people to know about their program. Actually, if you travel the world over, there's greeters in many cities, Paris, New York, and they're offered by cities and they're free. So the cities are always trying to encourage people. And of course, we've had a very difficult year. For me, my last official tour was in March. All of our calendars just disappeared after March, and it's been very difficult. Especially, I want to point out that many in the tourism industry are gig economy people. I know a lot of fellow actors, bartenders, chefs. It's been a tough year. And we're really, Choose Chicago is encouraging, and I encourage everyone to get out and get to know your own city. But maybe we're not traveling as much, but I was down, I noticed a lot of the river tours are not very full, but they're running them. I'm sad to say the water taxi has decided not to run for the rest of the year. I said, my daughter works along the river, and I said, hey, just jump in the water taxi and run down to Pingtom. Oh yeah. So we're all experiencing that, but we live in a great city. So there's 200 neighborhoods that I highly encourage people to get out there. Take a look at some of the neighborhoods that you might not have had a chance to look at before. Chicago Greeters are doing some tours again. They do private tours. You can look on their website and sign up for that. We used to not, we did people that had to be coming from out of town, but they're currently encouraging local people. Jump in, get a private tour and learn something new about the city. So it's been, for me, being a guide, really fun and so educational to get out to different neighborhoods like this, like Chinatown. Just west of here is Pilsen. Everybody in this room can look that way and see those new hotels, the Marriott, the Hyatt. So the south side of the city has definitely not always had a lot of attention. And the city has really focused on the fact that, by the way, our convention center is here. We have not really done a good job of supporting that neighborhood around the convention center, encouraging people to be there, to stay there, to work there, to live there. And so we're seeing a lot of that kind of development. We've seen new hotels. There's the incredible historic Motor Row is very close to that. I mean, the home of blues. Motor Row has a long history as being one of the first areas where they had the auto dealers were there in a showroom. That was a new thing at the turn of the early 1900s. You could, when they first were getting the automobiles, even Detroit didn't do that. We did that. And there's a Studebaker. I mean, a lot of it is really great event space, great spaces there. Just west of here, the Pilsen Neighborhood, if people have not visited that, it's called Pilsen. It was settled in the Czech community. But that happens many times in Chicago, that communities move on. There's vestiges of their culture there, but it's primarily a Latinx community now, and the murals and the food and Folly Hall for music. And as I've been around the city in the last couple of weeks, I've been so impressed with just the ingenious decisions going on about, you know, how can we still be there? How can we reach out to people? The city has been pretty helpful in trying to allow more outside spaces. So it's been really great to see that. So Chinatown, this area was downtown. And then after that era of the World's Fair of 1893, they began to resettle south. And then they had a lot of people who really committed to establishing this area. So it was officially named the New Chinatown in 1912. And it was a very thriving community, but they got cut, some things got cut off. We were putting in highways, the Dan Ryan, Stevenson, all of a sudden they were getting cut off. Their green space and access to the river was getting cut off. So there's been a great, we are in, right now, I'm sorry, it's Leonard Lewis, is that right? Lewis facility, which is the newest facility in this area, very much a community space. But we are next to the incredibly beautiful Ping Tong Park. And Ping Tong was a businessman who came to this area and was just really good at being engaged and involved all through the community, but he really stepped up with a group of businessmen. And I know that Eric might know more about this, but they worked out to buy what had been the Santa Fe Railroad land, right?
That's right.
Okay. So right behind us, so we're kind of sitting on that, but that was a lot of work. They worked with the city, they worked with governments, they got a lot of grants and worked through that and got funding and established this area. So I highly recommend a visit to this area. When the water taxi is running, it's my favorite way of coming down here. The red line stop is right there. It's very easy to get around the city. After the World's Fair of 1893, one of the names you'll hear about here in Chicago quite often is Burnham, Daniel Burnham. He was an architect and designer of that fair. So everyone was coming into the city. The Chinese population, they more than doubled between 1890 and 1900, but we were seeing that across the board. People were flocking to the city. So the city leaders went to Daniel Burnham and said, boy, we're growing so fast, maybe we should do it in a way that's managed. So Chicago is very fortunate to have the plan of 1909, and it is still held up and referenced in our discussions across the city about development and how we grow and how we live. He was a big advocate of green spaces. He advocated for having lots of piers, We ended up with one Navy Pier, but we at least got one out of that. Eric will know more about this too, that he advocated, he suggested moving, they just need to kind of straighten out and
The river.
the river,
Right?
yeah.
Yeah, so quick side note, basically, as you look north from this building, you would have, before the 1930s, seen the Chicago River. So when the Chicago River got south of about Polk Street, it actually curved east quite a bit over to about the Rock Island tracks, right over here, and then curved back. It was a major hazard to shipping. So they basically kind of dug a new canal and then filled in the old part of the river, which is this big open lot just to our north right now.
So Eric was talking about the fact that they really moved the river, but that was subsequent to reversing the flow of the river and doing the canal system. That was an addition later?
It was after that.
It was after that, right? Yeah, okay. So the river is a very important part of our lives, but we've pretty much just dumped our garbage into it and ignored it most of our lives, even those of us growing up here. But we were really doing that. And in fact, this area was very industrial. West of here was the stockyards. Still, we have the vestiges of that. Many of the buildings around here are loft buildings, business buildings that have been renovated into residences. And that had a lot to do with Ping Tom and other business people who were really trying to turn this into a place where you really want to live, work, and play. So in the late 1800s, that's like extra noisy. There's the Metro. We've got everything. We've got all the trains are coming through here. But we are, Chicago's a transportation hub. So it's okay. We have to like that, right? So in the late 1800s, in that era after the World's Fair, a lot of great minds are coming together, a lot of discussion about what a great city this is going to be, this is. And the problem is that our water flowed from the Chicago River into Lake Michigan. And if you've ever been along the lake and looked out at the round buildings way in the distance where Colette, you sail by those, they're the pumping stations, and our water comes from Lake Michigan. So that was a bit of a problem when you have things going into the water that are heading out to the lake. So the great minds came together at the end of 1800s and said, we're going to reverse the flow of the river. They did it. I'm still kind of amazed about that. But they did it by building a canal system that contributed to that being. So now the Des Plaines River, the canal system out of Calumet River, the Chicago River, they come together, they head on down to Mississippi River, and every once in a while St. Louis takes us to court and says we're messing up the water, and we usually prevail. So this area, we see a lot of the bridges here, a lot of that south area. Many of you experience what's happened to our river along that central area. The river walk, it's very pretty. We've done a lot of work down there. This area, it's happening too. So I highly encourage people to use water taxis, come down here to Ping Tong Park and take advantage of the fact that Chicago is embracing that other blue stripe now in our flag. And we're really figuring out that the river is a place where we need to look out over it. We need to be playing and working along there. And I've seen a lot of that open back up in the last few weeks. So I highly recommend people come down here, see what Ping Tom and other leaders have done, see what's happening in neighborhoods around Chicago, get out to places you don't usually go. So, and cheers with my 312 beer.
Don't go too far.
Okay.
Let's do a quick couple minutes of Q&A here.
Easy question.
Yeah, let's start with the audience here in person first. Any questions for Nancy?
How do we get a private tour?
How do we get a private tour is the question from Colette.
Email me. We'll do that anytime.
Sorry, I didn't put you in the spot.
So I work with I work as an independent contractor with an international company called toursbylocals.com. So when you go on toursbylocals.com website, you plug in Chicago, and I highly recommend this when you travel. You plug in wherever you're going, there's usually going to be some guides there. There's about 6 of us that work in Chicago. You can see what we offer and decide, oh, that sounds like something. And then you connect with us on that platform, and we all love to do, you know, private, unique tours. I've had 2 families, quick side, that hired me because they had done their family history and they wanted to be taken to places where family members had lived, worked, died, and that was fun for me. That was unique.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I'm not seeing any questions here on Zoom, so I'll ask
It
a
was
question.
complete then.
Very thorough, very thorough. Oh, were you pointing? Oh, you have a question, please.
Have they talked about that in the past couple of years?
I'm just going to repeat the question real fast for
Yes.
folks on Zoom. Basically, Donna just wants to know about plans to extend the river walk further down the river, south, or perhaps north as well.
So they have some, they had some proposals a few years ago for the area, especially behind the Lyric Opera and everything. They were great. They're kind of on hold right now. There's many areas where the private property goes right up. They can't get around it. But you see what they've done on the Chicago River downtown. They just worked out under the bridges. So, and they're doing quite a bit up north in the toward Goose Island. I highly recommend down here, up north around Goose Island, kayaking there. I mean, you can kayak in the main branch, but good luck. There's a lot of boats. I just think that looks a little scary. But the kayaking down here on the north branch, you know, we're seeing so much more activity. So they're working on it.
If I could just add to that, I know that whenever they put new developments that are along the river that fit within that plan, they're required to put riverwalk segments. So in this whole segment to the north of us here,
Which is called the 78 because apparently it's going to be the 78th neighborhood, even though it's a lot. But yeah, the 78 is huge.
and they'll have a river walk for their segment. So I think you're going to see like bits and pieces.
Yeah.
You know, it may take a while, I assume, before they're all connected, but you'll get like bits and pieces along the river.
For sure.
While on the subject, so does it go all the way to the lake and that's it? That's the end of it?
It stops at
Lake stops, right?
It stops at Lake, and then you can come up, and then you'll see there's like Beatnik, and Porter. There's some restaurants that are starting to show up along there, but right now you can walk up at the upper level, but not at that lower level. We're working on it.
Very good. I do have, actually, there is a question here. Let's see. So it's Salvador tells us that we're members of Choose Chicago, and at the beginning of the madness, many of the members offered virtual tours, concerts, players, etc. Do you know if that's still the case?
Oh, yes. And I know there's a lot of, I'm so glad you pointed that out. There's a lot of guides, look all over through Chicago, through the Chicago Architectural Center, through, I think, Secret Chicago. There's a lot of guides all over the city that are doing virtual tours, so.
Great.
Yeah.
And then one final question. Do you have any suggestions for books on the history of Chicago other than The Devil in the White City, which is a no-brainer?
Yeah. I have so many, I can't think of, I mean, you can look that up. There's one that was situated right over here, really close, called Sin City. I think it's just called Sin City. It was about the Everly sisters who ran, well, you know, a little house of ill repute right over here. This was the red light district until early 1900s, so.
Very good. Well, let's give Nancy another round of applause. Don't go too far. I've got one more thing for you, Nancy.
Okay.
So we offer every Rotary One speaker a gift of thanks from a local community-based organization with the goal of affecting lasting change in Chicago, our very own city. All proceeds from this gift, which happened to be candles this year,
All right.
support Bright Endeavors, and their mission is to empower young moms by providing transitional jobs and professional skills training. So this not only helps those young moms, but also supports their kids and ultimately, obviously, these 77 communities. So this is consistent with our community service focus this year of education. So please enjoy your candle.
I'll say one more thing.
Please.
The Chicago Architectural Center usually does an amazing open house weekend in October with hundreds of sites you can't usually see. I love volunteering for that. This year, we're not volunteering, but that's going to be online in October. So Chicago Architectural Center, check that out.
All right. Thank you very much, Nancy.
Sure.
So I'd like to do a guest introduction next. I'm going to be honest, it's going to be very difficult to do that over Zoom for us today. So I am going to decide to stick with folks in the room who are guests. So I think we have 2 guests with us today. So if you'd like to just stand up and tell us your name and what brought you here to the meeting. Well, that's the important part. Okay, Roland's wife is here as a guest. Very good. I should tell you that we have a program on Lithuania focused on Vilnius on September 8th with the mayor of Vilnius. So I hope to see you again. All right. Very good. Well, thank you so much for coming. You're welcome. And then one more guest. You are a guest. Okay, well, thank you very much. Welcome. Linda, right? But welcome, Linda, and Ed's wife. Very good, thank you. Okay, so we have, I'm not missing anybody. So we have a couple of announcements today as well for volunteer opportunities. So first of all, our very own Bernard Groth is setting up another shipment of items to go off to Haiti, and he needs some volunteers to primarily help inventory the assortment of items to go down there and create a packing and commercial invoice. And that'll be this Saturday, August 8th, from 2 p.m. until the packing is completed. It's at a public storage at 2910 West Toohey Avenue in Elk Grove Village. There is Pace Bus access. There is parking there. I think he volunteered to buy people coffee if they showed up. So you can find the information in the gyrator that went out this morning, and it's also on our website on the calendar. We also have this Friday, Alita once again delivering meals to the Maple Point apartments, to the seniors that are located there. It's, I think, very rewarding work. You basically, she prepares the meals, you just show up, bring a mask, they'll provide gloves, and you just leave the meals in front of the apartments of the different seniors. This is part of our COVID-19 relief efforts. So you can sign up again through our website on the calendar. It's also in the gyrator. Let's see here. I don't think I mentioned it, but we do have the Rotary Network. We're not going to have Marshall do a presentation on that today, but please do check that out at Rotary Network or the RotaryNetwork.com. And you can see all kinds of job resources, employment resources. You can post jobs, you can find jobs, you can find job skills training and resources there as well. So please do check that out. There's mentoring. It's a really, really incredible effort. Reach out to Marshall if you have any more questions on that. In terms of other upcoming meetings, our committees continue to meet virtually. They're all on the calendar these days, but just FYI, we've got community service on August 6th, PR marketing August 20th, and international service on August 27th. In terms of our next Rotary meetings, well, believe it or not, our next meeting next week is also in person with a Zoom element for those who want to chime in that way. So it's our typical lunch meeting at 12:10, but it is a very important meeting. As always, it is our Job 1 Awards and Appreciation Lunch. This is very important, particularly this year with the challenges that our high school students in Chicago are facing, with all of the issues they've had to contend with. Definitely not a normal year for them, and yet Alita was able to get our students placed in jobs. They had their training, they had their job fair. We may have done it through Zoom, but it got done. So it's important that you show up either virtually or in person to support our students, to support the employers, and to support their parents. It will be another outdoor off-site meeting to allow for the social distancing. And this one is going to be at the Glesner House Courtyard, which is at 1800 South Prairie. So I knew you'd be happy about that, Nancy, because that is another architectural gym. It's an architectural gym. So you have two architectural themed meeting points in a row. It's a beautiful old mansion back when South Prairie Street was the place to be in the city of Chicago. So it's a beautiful courtyard there. Come and I believe, correct me if I'm wrong here, Karen, but did they say that they were going to give tours of the house if people wanted it as well? Okay, well, that's a definite maybe on tours. So then after that, on August 18th, we'll be back to purely Zoom, and we're going to start out with our inaugural Young Entrepreneur Series, which I'm going to dub the Carl Zimmerman Young Entrepreneur Series. And we have Christian Berner and Akshay Singh from Quicket Solutions, who are both in their 20s, and we're in the Cranes 20 in their 20s for their new business. So with that, unless I am forgetting any announcements here, somebody stop me if I am. I don't think I am. We're going to just do this time the four-way test together as a group, as a room, since we're all here in the room together. And sorry, you don't have a sign behind me, so you're just going to have to follow along. So there is a handout if you want it. You're going to hand it out to our guests and our new members. Hold on 1 second as we make sure that our new members and guests are all hooked up with a copy of the four-way test. Colette definitely needs a copy of the four-way test. Take that as a hint, Colette. All right, so four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it the truth? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned? Meeting adjourned.